Hi, well today I'm making rounder planes, and rounder planes are actually very hard to get hold of but very useful tools, and you've probably seen me use them in films like the Sussex chair and the Glasgow chair, and they're great actually for turning wood and making delicate spindles or making things like rake handles. So I'm going to be making some wooden ones, and today I'm going to be making them using a metalworker's lathe. So the lathe I'm going to be using is my old Myford ML7, and this is one I picked up a while ago and refurbed. It's actually a little bit older than me, but not very much older, but it's a nice decent bit of kit. It's lovely solid castings and it's well made. So I'll be turning on the faceplate. We'll get going. It's best to use some hardwood for making the rounder planes. And actually one of my friends wanted a 5/8 inch exit rounder plane, so I said okay, give me some wood and I'll do some boring. So that's what we're going to make on the metal lathe, a 5/8 exit one. It's the same principle no matter what size you're doing, and I'll put some plans in my Etsy shop which will have the exit and entry diameters and all the angles and everything else, all the measurements that you need to make one of these. But that's the starting point. It's good to have Forstner bits for this job, not essential but quite nice. And really apart from that, if you've got the lathe you don't need much else. So first up I'm going to attach the block of wood to my faceplate, and to do that I'll just mark the centre, put my faceplate over where I think the centre is, and then using screws and washers attach the wood to the faceplate. So I've just been finding the centre of this piece of wood. You don't have to be too accurate at this stage, and then by sight work out where the centre is on the faceplate. And then get one of the washers, place it over and mark your holes. And I'll drill these out and get the screws in. Then that will fix. I'm going to use 4 holes because it's under a fair bit of pressure as it's rotating in the lathe. And the extra screws will make sure this wood doesn't fly off. Obviously I'm going to run the lathe at a very low speed. So just drilling the holes now for the screws, making them full depth. I'm going to use 1 3/4 screws, and it's 4 holes, should be enough. So I'm just getting the last screw in. There we are, fair bit of force on those. So that's the idea, blocks mounted on the lathe. So I'll now put this on and we can get drilling. Just check that turns freely, that's fine, so I'll put it under load in a second. So what I'm going to do first of all is drill a 5/8 inch hole right the way through the wooden block. Now on my lathe I have got enough diameter on the mandrel to take the 5/8 cutter. If I didn't, I'd simply put some waste wood on the faceplate so I didn't drill into the faceplate. But let's get going. So I've got the lathe running at a fairly low speed. I'm, don't know, 300-400 RPM, something like that. And I'm just going to slowly and carefully drill in. The reason I'm drilling on the lathe is that obviously the lathe will find the centre. If I did this on a drill press and then put it on the lathe, I'd be introducing inaccuracy. It's a good idea as you go along just to remove sawdust, so keep extracting your drill bit and get the sawdust off it, so you'll get a cleaner hole and also you'll stop your drill bit overheating. There we go, out it comes. And once again let's get that dust off, be a bit careful of the turning work here doing this. So all being well, you end up with a 5/8 inch hole right the way through your wooden block. And for the last few turns I actually had to extend my drill bit right out. I made sure the tip was in the wood just from a safety point of view so it couldn't fly out. So it's obviously not being held in the chuck very well. For the next step I'm going to make my entry hole, which is going to be 1 inch diameter. So I probably should have drilled this one first, but I'm going to now drill my 1 inch diameter entry hole using a 1 inch Forstner bit. I think actually in retrospect I should have drilled this first, then the 5/8 hole, but because I would have then got the point centre for guiding the 5/8. But it doesn't really matter on a metal lathe, because it's all rigid and solid enough. So I'll drill that, and I'll drill that in about 1/2 inch. Obviously the entry holes, the size will depend on your exit holes, and all of this will be on the plans that I'll put up. So that's my entry hole drilled. So there we have the block of wood, and it's got a parallel inch diameter entry hole, and then behind that you can see the 5/8 hole going the whole way through. Now the next step, and this is the tricky one, is to put an internal taper on that so that the entry hole meets up with the exit hole. Now if you're doing this on an ordinary wood lathe, I have done it, and you do it by eye, and if you're good you'll manage it. I've managed it I'll be honest, after a couple of attempts, but it is quite feasible. On a metal lathe you have an advantage, because obviously you can just dial in the degrees of taper on your top slide, which is what I've done here. So I will now go in and bore out that taper, and this is where obviously the metal lathe does make it a bit easier. So here I am, all set to go. Again, just make sure that's turning freely, which it is. We'll switch on. So that tool bit at the moment is just rubbing on the inside entry wall. I'll now start to go in by using my top slide and take it very carefully. You can hear what's going on as well as feel it. So I'll carry on taking that taper down. It's fairly quick to do this, but I'm going to go with 2 hands now, so I'll put the camera down. So that's the sort of thing you're after, a nice conical hole. So we've got a very slightly squared shoulder going in as the entry, and then it's a nice tapered conical hole coming out to a 5/8 hole at the back. For the next step you need to do some fairly accurate marking out, so find your centre line and then draw a tangent at 90 degrees to that centre line, so that's a tangent to that circle. Do the same thing on the other side. The next step then is to draw a line at an angle to that tangent. And what you then need to take account of is the thickness of the blade you're using as well. But you do that bed angle on both sides of the block. So we'll be cutting away this area for the mouth of the plane. Now because the holes are different diameters, entry and exit, that line for the bed isn't obviously a right angle, so we're taking it off the tangent each time. I've put full instructions for this in drawings in the download, so you can, if you want to, look at that a bit more. For the blade and the cap I'm going to use spoke shave components, as they're readily available and perfectly okay for this. So I'm going to now just draw another line just to take account of that blade thickness. So I cut away, and then the top edge of the blade will sit on that existing line. Taking account of the blade thickness, my cut line is now going to be the one the arrow's pointing at, my fingers pointing at. So turning the block over, same thing here, that will be my cut line. And same on there, be the line that side. I've also put the line in for the mouth, so that will be my cut line for the mouth. I'm now going to cut the lathe bed. Now just use whichever saw you like. I'm going to use one of these Japanese pull saws because the blades are lovely and thin and the teeth are fairly fine. But I mean, the idea is just to make a very accurate cut. I'm now going to make the other cut. This is for the throat. There you have it. That's your blade bed cut. So that's what you're left with, something that looks vaguely like that. And what will happen is your blade will sit in the middle there like that. I'm now just marking in where the blade itself will sit, and what you can do, you can put your finger just along in the conical hole and just get it so you just start to feel the blade a bit like on the other side of a plane. So it'll be roughly there. I'll just outline that so I know that's broadly where it goes, and then work out where your cap arm is going. It must go in the middle roughly. I think that will work. Let's just double check. So if that's there, centre hole there. So what I'll do now is I will put a screw in to support the cap arm. That's obviously at right angles to the actual bed. There we are. Chisel that off flat so it sits nice and flat, and then pop the screw in using a cheese head type round head wood screw here, brass one that I've got lying around. So that's the blade in place, held on with the screw there and the cap on. So that's the blade bit done now. So what I'm going to do next, I'm just going to round off the edges with a little plane just to make it a bit smoother, and then need to put some handles on it. It's just for decoration really, it's just to make it a little bit pleasanter to the eye and to the feel. I'm just drilling in some sort of holes to take handles. My drill struggles a bit at this. I should probably drill with a narrow drill bit first, but I think I'm there. I'm just trimming some handles now to make them fit. So I've done inch diameter sockets, and I've got a couple of bits of ash here, which is only sort of hand whittled, but it'll be fine. And I'm just doing a test fit to make sure they'll be nice and tight. I'll glue them in properly. Then there'll be a good bit of leverage on those handles. I've got the handles attached, I've cleaned the block up a bit, and the blade's in position. I've just actually got to sharpen up that blade and get its angle right. I'll give full instructions of this on the download. Now I've just been applying a bit of boiled oil, so a bit of linseed oil, and that should give it a nice bit of protection and actually makes it look rather nice. I'm just doing a test now on this one just to see how it's going. Again, I'm just trying this out on a piece of rather hard seasoned dry wood, but it is working very well. And I know if I can get fibre like this off dry wood, when I come to use greenwood, it will be even better. Yeah, getting a ribbon of wood, so it's, and getting a dowel coming out the other end. So there you are. Hope you found that useful. And as I say, there's some plans in my Etsy shop which will show you all the dimensions, the angles and everything else, and they're very reasonably priced. Thanks so much for watching. Bye bye.